Within our society, there is constant change and perpetual need for new information. As humans, we are naturally curious and have a tendency to want to better our world through deeper understanding through a process we call research. This is Jade Scatliffe,
Genevieve Bowlby,
Delaney Leefe,
Haley Stirling,
and Brittany Cox.
And today we will be looking at the research process through both a quantitative and qualitative lens in regards to the consequences of prison terms on juvenile delinquents. Qualitative research uses non-numerical information to address questions regarding why or how certain things happen through looking at the deeper meanings of specific experiences. Qualitative data is expressed through intangible measurements such as feelings and impressions. It is used to answer subjective questions like, what is it like to be in this particular situation?
Quantitative research takes a more scientific, mathematical approach as it relies on numbers and formulas to make predictions and inferences. Quantitative data can answer questions such as how frequently and how many, as is often expressed in tangible numbers, ratios, and percentages. Within quantitative research, a hypothesis is used to describe the relationship between the two variables. Our first step in the research process would be to create a hypothesis based on the prior knowledge we have on the subject. In order to fully understand the hypothesis proposed, a literature review is used to understand previous research done. This would include stress and isolation at a young age, as well as the idea of a child not following the norms of society, which can cause anomie. This is then why we would assume that the longer a prison sentence, the greater the negative effects will be on the juvenile delinquents.
To begin the research process, we must narrow the scope of our question through the essential first steps in the research process. The first steps are important because they require one to focus and specify the research problem in a way that it can be formally and accurately measured. The first steps involve narrowing the scope of the question to be studied as well as selecting a way to measure changes in variables. By narrowing the length of prison terms we examine into two specific sentence terms, for example 2 months compared to 2 years. Also, by narrowing the age group of juvenile delinquents we examine, specifying the gender of our sample, and through the location of the prison, we can create a more focused and accurate research study that can be looked at through both qualitative and quantitative methods.
The data collection phase is the next step within the research process, which involves collecting data about the research question. This entails organizing proper data collection and then summarizing it to later analyze and interpret. To begin the data collection, we would first lay out a timeline for when our research and data collection would take place. Juveniles are most likely to repeat offenses within 24 months of their release from prison. That is how long we would conduct our data collection. From here, we would begin to take a look qualitatively at the verdicts from different judges. An example of this would be examining 2 juvenile delinquents with similar upbringings who have committed the same crime and are of the same age, race, and gender, but who are given 2 different sentence lengths. We can then study their reintegration into society through qualitative and quantitative methods. A quantitative method would be to observe the number of repeat offenses that occur once they are out of prison, and observing the rate at which they reintegrate into society. A qualitative method would be to monitor the mental health and social relationships that are formed or reformed when they are released.
After the research has been conducted, the third phase is to analyze and interpret the data. By going through the outcomes of the data, we can then determine the correlation between the variables. In the case we have proposed, we would have a better understanding of the correlation between the length of prison terms and the resulting consequences. By following this research process, we are able to conclude that the data supports our hypothesis that longer prison terms result in greater negative effects in the lives of juvenile delinquents.
Thank you for following along as we carried out the steps needed to conduct accurate research. Understanding the research process is key to conducting precise information.